Hello and welcome back to another episode of Rugby with Pads. This week is draft week. And I only say that because I'm drafting on Saturday of this week. So I am going to fill your head with ideas of grandeur and draft nothingness. It's an important time of the year, and I've already said in my kind of Fantasy 201, it doesn't have to be the be all and end all, but it is probably the most important tentpole event. It's so important that I'm recording a bunch of episodes. I'm getting ready to go on holiday. So I will be on holiday while you're listening to this. So if you've got any questions, I'll come back to you on Saturday. But I'm drafting on the 24th, and I'm drafting in 2 major leagues. And over the next week, I'm going to give you an insight into my way of thinking and what I think will make you better as a draft candidate. So I'm going to start off today with 10 things to avoid. And this is, I think, hopefully this will get you thinking, because last year we've talked about the ways you should be doing things and what have you, but I'm going to talk to you about 10 things to avoid, a couple of ways that you can draft, and then introduce something that I hope will be useful for you. But I'm going to make this quick. So with that done, I've not got a script ahead of me. I'm just going to kind of rip off the top. I've got 10 categories I'm going to talk to you about. The number 10, we're going to go 10 to 1. I don't think these are important as in importance, but yeah, I've written them down anyway. But the first thing is, don't worry about bye weeks. Okay. People get so hepped up about bye weeks. So bye weeks are for the uninitiated, and this might be your first draft. They're the weeks you can't play your players. And having multiple players on one team is a risk, because let's say you've got a Texans stack or a Texans super stack. You've gone for Joe Mixon in the 4th, you've got CJ Stroud you've got in the 3rd, and you've got Nico Collins who you got in the 2nd, or something like that. So I don't know, whatever mix you've got in week 8 or whatever it is that they've got a bye week, they're resting. You can't play any of those players. Does it kill your team? It could do, but I have a more pragmatic mindset to it. I've already said in the last episode that you shouldn't worry about your draft killing your team. It won't kill your team. Your draft makes your team. You can't win in the draft. You can't necessarily lose if you have good in-season management, and that's going to be key. So at that point, you make sure you suck up that week. And I think if you've got lots of players on the same bye week, you also have lots of players who aren't. Or you're only going to suffer that bipocalypse, we call it, on 1 week. So make sure you're just keeping aware during the season on what you need to do. Use the waiver wires effectively. Stream a quarterback for that week. Trade. That you, if CJ Stroud is doing great and you've got him, he's, let's say by week 8. I don't know what the bye weeks are, and you've got him week 6. He's done great. You want to trade him, knowing that you're going to miss out and you're going to have that super stack break. That's a great opportunity. You can leverage that for better picks or a better position. The next thing I would not do in drafts is to fill your starting lineup. Going from top to bottom is the worst way to draft, and it's the easiest trick to get into, because you're sat there on your computer screen and you've got a list of guys, and quarterback, running back, wide receiver, flex. Okay, great. That is a traditional way of doing it, and not gonna lie, my first ever draft, I drafted a quarterback first. It was a bit of a different time in the mid noughties, and well, maybe that's aging myself a little bit, but anyway, don't do that, because what's more valuable to you if you're taking a strategy that makes that drives the most value for your team, and it's not going to be filling out those slots. Because if you pass up on a fantastic wide receiver 3 in your flex spot to go for a frankly mediocre tight end that doesn't really fit your team, doesn't benefit a stack or anything like that, that's where you're going to go wrong. So don't worry about filling your bench before you fill the team. And that goes to the same in my kind of, I'm going to say this is going to be point 8 combined, but don't bother drafting a kicker and a defense, especially not if you're filling out your team sheet, because you'll be drafting them way too early. My personal opinion is don't draft them at all. And I'm going to be trying that out in a lot of leagues, because if you're drafting them in the last round anyway, well, you might as well draft someone with upside, because it's still a couple of weeks before the season starts. Injuries happen. Don't draft a kicker. Don't draft a defense unless you really, really have to, or you think it will give you a massive advantage. And there's maybe like 3 guys who I think will give you an advantage. And I don't think it's that much. So I would avoid it. You can always stream someone each week, and that keeps you involved in your team. I would always recommend that because, Justin Tucker, as good as he is, isn't going to be a game changer every week, unless you're in a kicker only league, which you shouldn't be. So that's first three. Don't worry about bye weeks. Don't fill your starting lineup straight away. Play the value positions. If value's staring at you, don't think I've got to fill a tight end. And don't worry. I'm just going to, I'm not going to say don't draft them, but don't worry about kickers and defenses at the very least until the last couple of rounds. Don't worry about a lack of research as well. So now, and this is more of an intermediate, and this can go either way. I am a research guy, and I know who I want going in, but I don't let that affect me. So don't worry if you don't have a lack of research, because there are going to be plenty of players. So let's say you're playing a 12-man league. There's maybe 3 or 4 guys who are anoraks who know everything. Doesn't mean they can win every time, because there is an element of luck to this. You can do well from gut feel, from seeing players, playing players you like. That was one of my tips in last episode. Playing players you like is really important. So don't worry about a lack of research, because there's going to be plenty of guys who haven't done any research. I go into my league every year with the same group of guys who quite often beat me, and they haven't done any research, no mocks or anything. So that leads me on into point number. Am I counting backwards? I can't remember, but I guess this is 5 or the other way around. Free mocks are great if you're trying something out, but nothing beats a in-person mock. Now, it's very difficult if you're playing with a bunch of guys who are intermediates and amateurs to get that kind of involvement. I wouldn't say don't do free mocks. I would always say do mocks, but don't think that those free mocks that you've got, the ones against the computer, are going to be gospel. We're going to do some here today, but I always take it with a pinch of salt and say, well, because there's always going to be a variable. There's always going to be a factor you have to consider, that someone is going to go off-piste and go and do something a bit crazy. So the computer doesn't do that, not very often anyway. And if you're in free mocks where you're just playing with a bunch of randoms, someone's going to take all the quarterbacks to start and troll you. So that's not really reflective of your actual league. So be mindful of free mocks and just take it with a pinch of salt, the outcome that you get. And I would go with that viewpoint, is that you can prepare, but you're never prepared for the inevitable surprise that you're going to get. Next point is, don't rely on reliability. Now, there is no reliability. End of the day, this is a game where, for players to receive points, they have to be in the right place at the right time, get open and catch the ball, or run past 7 or 8 200-pound men to get to a first down marker, to get past the gain line. It is incredibly hard, and game plans can go out the window. What if you get sucker punch in the mouth and a team scores a bunch of points on special teams? Okay, well that changes the game plan. They're going to throw it more. It means your reliable, quote unquote, guy who had in the backfield isn't reliable, and things change. We see things in camp, and for example, here we thought that Kimani Vidal, I think that's how you spell it, was going to be a lock for a lot of volume in the Chargers offense. Preseason week 1, he didn't get a single touch. It's crazy. He's behind Isaiah Spiller, who was basically dead to us a couple of years ago. So there is no such thing as reliability. There's no such thing as predictability as well. So you need to have reliable players in certain positions, and I would say that. So don't just draft for upside straight away. So in the first round, you're going to want to get someone who you can, quote unquote, rely upon, or at least be available. And that's probably more the case, is you want some guys who are available. Don't carry on with that, because you can't guarantee it for everyone. You need enough to cover you, but you also need upside. So the next piece is, don't go without upside. So don't draft without having any upside on your team. You need to throw flyers late on, because as I said last week, those are the guys who are going to win you your leagues. are going to help you win your leagues anyway. The guys who are sleeper picks, who maybe aren't with ADP and all that kind of stuff, it's really hard to quantify what they're going to be, but that X factor is really important. And as I mentioned last week, I won a league based on Rashard Penny, who everyone had given up on. Who's to say that there isn't going to be someone like Bucky Irving, who's going to be the next guy who shines 3 weeks in the playoffs and you can ride him to success. You want that upside, because if, let's say, Rashad White in that position goes down, well, there's instant volume there. That's the upside play. He's not going to do anything for your team. He's going to be there, but did you need him to do anything up until that point? No, you don't. You need to have those players with upside, players with latent potential later on. And with that, also, I would say, I'm going to say this point at this point. Site rankings are not the be all and end all, because they don't quantify upside. What they do is they give you a bunch of stats that are aggregated together and creates an ADP. Do you follow it? Do you just do the next guy up? That's what the computer will probably do. But you're not a computer. You have an understanding, that you have some tactics, whether you know it or not, and you need to play to that. So just because Jalen Waddle is staring you in the face, if it doesn't work for your team, don't take him. Go with the guy that you think is going to give you the best opportunity to win at any given game week. And finally, it goes, you know what, I'm going to go against conventional wisdom here. So the conventional wisdom says, don't get players who are injured. And I agree with that to an extent. I am not drafting JJ McCarthy this year after I know he's going to sit out. So make sure to avoid those guys. But guys who are going to come back and have upside, that's interesting. Now, the player I'm thinking of in particular is Nick Chubb. He's going in the 9th or 10th round. If you've been watching in the off season to any publication, everyone loves him as a running back, and I do too. I can't see anything wrong with him as a running back. He is fantastically sharp, fast, powerful, athletic. He's great. He's injured, and it's a horrible injury. But if he gets better, and he might do, wouldn't I want that upside? Now, I would say this as a massive caveat. He's probably not worth it if your team hasn't got a number 2 running back at the 10th spot. And we'll investigate this when we do some drafts, because he'll probably come up as a name in conversation. But don't write him off. If you've got an IR slot and you can put him in there, draft him later on than everyone else, and zig while people zag. I think it's really interesting. It's worked out well for me in the past of drafting injured players who I know are going to come back and make an impact. You've got to balance the sacrifice there, but don't write it off. So they're my 10 almost avoids. They're my 10 draft don'ts, I guess. Don't worry about the bye week. Don't worry about filling your starting lineup straight with you. It's not a list you're trying to fill here. Don't worry about reaching on players. Did I talk about that? I probably did, but don't worry about reaching on players if you know they're the right player. Don't reach too far, but don't worry about reaching a little bit as well, especially if you're on the ends of each draft. Drafting kickers and defenses, avoid like the plague. Don't worry about a lack of research, because there will be people who are less well educated than you, and things go wrong. You can't prepare for the unexpected. Free mocks, take them with a pinch of salt. Just make sure you understand what your strategy is, and it's good to put yourselves in situations, and we'll do that over the next week. There is no such thing as reliability. Do draft upside. Don't leave your league without any upside. Don't worry too much about site rankings. Draft in your own way, and we'll get into that in just a second. And take injuries with a pinch of salt. Just know what you've got to do to overcome an injury, and if it's going to kill your team, don't do it. If it's not, and you can play around with it a little bit, and you can see the upside, do it. So those are my 10 draft don'ts, and the one I'm going to pick up on there is site rankings. Now, every man and their dog has site rankings. We know that. And here at Rugby with Pads, we are no different. We have a level of site rankings. But you've probably guessed from if you're watching on YouTube, I've got a little sign there on my whiteboard that says tier-based drafts for the win. After years and years of trying, it is the only way I draft. I only draft in tiers, because you're drafting via ADP or drafting for a particular strategy, you can do really well. And I'm going to introduce you to my tier-based drafting after a quick break. I will see you on the other side. Welcome back, folks. Hopefully that wasn't too long a wait for you, and it hasn't, created a change in scenery for me. Yes, I do have rankings, but I don't do it in a straight ranking. It's not like top from bottom. The way I use my rankings is really to drive the idea of drafting in the right situation, the right position, the right time, etc. And I use tier-based drafting for that. And this is a snapshot into my way of thinking. This is we called it the I think the intermediate draft kit last year, the IDK. But this is going to be available and is going to be a living document that is available to you should you want to join and support Rugby with Pads monetarily, or just get involved. Long story short, you can get access to this and make your own version for as little as £1 a month. So if you just want to do it for draft month, just do it for draft month. It's all yours. What we have here is a draft board that allows you to prioritize positions. And I don't do loads and loads of them, of these tiers, because I think you can tune it to your requirements. Let's say you're in a super flex. You're thinking, well, who is the top ranking? Is it Josh Allen there? Is it Christian McCaffrey, etc.? It almost doesn't matter, because if you know you're going for a top tier running back and that's your strategy, and these guys become unavailable, etc., and you go down the list and say, oh, okay, well, I've got Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, and Dak Prescott available to me. Who's the best out of those guys? You're going to want to pick one of these guys, because they're in that bucket of the kind of my guy league winners. They're in that tier 3 bucket before you get down to a Dak Prescott, who is maybe not going to be performing as well as those guys. So it's all about bringing that position value in there. And I would always advise, when looking at tier-based drafts, to look who's on the end, who's available to you. So I think there is a lot of value in guys who are towards the end of the tier. This isn't direct, but if you can get the last guy, let's say off bat, in the first round, Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, and Jahmyr Gibbs go. Okay, next guy off the board is Jonathan Taylor, and you're getting to the midway through the second round, and you're up. Okay, your choice is, you need a running back at this point. Let's say you either go for Kyron Williams, who is the only guy left, or you have to wait and drop down a tier. Do you want to do that? Do you want to give up? And you've got to weigh up. And the way I've done these tiers is, I think there is a distinct difference between these two players. I think you're getting more value here. It's not going to be exact, because at the end of the day, as a quote RB1, if you're in the top 12, you're an RB1. I do think there is a difference between RB1s, though, because Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall are going to be different to Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, who are going to be different from Travis Etienne and Alvin Kamara. That's what you're looking to do via tier-based drafts. I'm not going to bleed this dry, but you can take a snapshot of this if you want, if you're watching on YouTube, or again, you can get this on my website, rugbywithpads.com. £1, you get access to this. I'll make sure it's all available, but I'm going to be spending the week using this to draft and see what happens, because I think we can get some really cool stuff out of this. And over the next few days, we have some great drafts available to you. I'm going to be doing my home league draft. I'm not sure when I'm going to do that. I'm probably going to release that last. I'm going to be doing a 16-man hero RB draft, where I take an RB early and then I wait. And I wait and wait and wait. I'm going to do a 12-team PPR 0 RB, because that's a very popular strategy coming up at the moment. And I've been reading a lot about it. There's actually some scientific papers on there. It's fantastic reading if you get a chance. And I'm going to finish off with a Superflex 12-team, because Superflex is an incredibly popular format these days. It's generally used in Dynasty, but it's quite often used in redraft as well. So it's important at this time of year. And guys, that's going to be your lot today. Short, sharp episode. We're trying to get in under that 20-minute mark, but really hope you enjoyed this. As I said before, if you want to support the pod, you can do at rugbywithpads.com. It takes you to our Buy Me a Coffee, and where you can subscribe, you can get merch. If you're a member, from £1, you get 10% off all merch, and I'm going to do bulk discounts and prizes and things like that. And there is still a code available, which is going to be in the description as well. If you get now, you get an extra 10% off if you remember or not. So that will be in the description below as a discount code for you guys to use. But as always, thank you so much. I will see you very, very soon. Said that the wrong way, but I will see you very, very soon. Probably tomorrow. I'll be on holiday, but you guys will be listening in, prepping for your drafts. I will see you all very soon on the Virtual Gridiron.